Hello, econ students, and welcome back to another episode of Economics with Mr. Stefanski. We are starting Unit 2, and Unit 2 covers modules 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. It will be focused on supply and demand. Unit 3 will also focus on supply and demand. Supply and demand is another a model that we're going to use to simplify the real world. When we think of models, once again, it's a simplification of the real world with assumptions that we'll make and holding certain things constant. So we're going to start with Module 5 today, and Module 5 specifically talks about the demand curve. So we're going to talk about the difference between a change in demand and a change in quantity demanded. There is going to be a difference. We're going to come up with demand schedules, demand curves, discuss that idea of, once again, a change in quantity demanded sliding up and down the demand curve, or a change in demand, which is a shift right or left. And we'll go over several examples. And then also with this module, there'll be another video that just talks about the worksheets that coincide with Module 5. So those will be also posted on the website. So please take advantage of those things. So what are we doing here? What is demand? Okay, and we have to understand demand. There's a difference between a want and a need. Okay, like we want a lot of things, but what do we need? Um, and we have to kind of look at that idea when we talk about demand. Remember, when we think of demand, it has to be our willingness and ability to buy different products at different prices. Our willingness and ability. Willingness, like it has to meet a certain amount of our satisfaction, and our ability, meaning that we have the money. I would love to own one of the Ford F-150 Raptor that's got all the bells and whistles. I'd be willing to buy that, but I'm not able to because that's almost $100,000, and I can't really afford to buy a car that expensive. I would also love to have an Olympic-sized swimming pool in my backyard. I'd be willing to have one, but I'm not able to pay for that. So when we talk about demand, we have to be looking at our willingness and ability to buy, and also we have to look at like the price and how much satisfaction that it's given us. Where we use usually for satisfaction, we use its utilities that it's giving us. Okay, and we talked about that word utility before in Unit 1. So we have to look at if something costs $5, am I willing and able to buy it? And is it giving me that when we talk about willingness, is it giving me at least $5 worth of satisfaction? If it's not giving me $5 worth of satisfaction, then I'm not going to buy that, right? So we look at this basic idea here as consumers. Are you able to purchase it? And do you have the willingness and ability to purchase that product, right? And does it give you that certain amount of satisfaction? So there might be a lot of things that you think you want, but you're not able to be on that demand curve because you don't have the ability to be on that demand curve. So when we think of the basic law of demand, the law of demand has an inverse relationship between price and quantity. Meaning, when we talk about price, as the price of a product goes up, our quantity demanded goes down, meaning that as prices go up, we'll buy less of a product. But when the price goes down, our quantity demanded goes up, meaning as the price falls, we're willing to buy more of the product. So the law of demand is this what I wrote here in the red, this inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So if you ever hear anyone go, what is the law of demand? You will say, the law of demand tells us that as price goes up, quantity demanded falls, or if price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. And that then creates, once we gather data, because remember, economists, when we make models, we gather data and we test our data. But the demand curve with price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis, we know the demand curve is going to be downward sloping to the right. Now, we might see some demand curves that are steeper, some demand curves that are flatter, but they're downward sloping to the right. And that's typically what you'd see of a demand curve. Once again, our willingness and ability to buy a product. So if I was going to offer to sell A's in econ class, if I had the price at, let's say, $1,000 to get an A for the semester, maybe one of you would be willing to buy it. But if I go down to maybe $500, then maybe three or four of you would get it. If I go down to $100, then heck, maybe 10 or 12 of you would want it. Oops, 10. I'll just leave it at 10. If I went down to $50, then maybe 20 of you would be willing to buy it. If I said $5, then maybe all 30 of you in the class would be willing to buy it. So, given that we've created a demand schedule, it's once again, if we look at it, it's downward sloping to the right. If so, this would be the demand schedule, and then this is the demand curve that I made. Price is here, or we put a money sign here. We always have to label, and quantity here. So we can see quantity gets bigger as we go to the right, and price goes up as we go vertical. So once again, the demand curve is always downward sloping to the right. Price is high, very few. Price goes down, very many are willing to buy it. Okay, so that gives us the basic idea of the demand curve. Now, if we take a look here, look at this post right here. Saw this on Facebook. Look at this. I have a nice desktop computer set for sale. It's about 12 years old. Everything is outdated. I'm trying to get $900 for it. Message me if you're interested. Well, who's willing to spend $900 on a 12-year-old computer? Right? So I doubt very much so if anyone is on the demand curve for this product. Maybe if the price was like $10, maybe you'd be willing to buy it because maybe you could use the keyboard or the mouse, or maybe there's something inside the PC that is usable. But at $900, you could probably buy two or three laptops, relatively inexpensive laptops. You could probably get, I bet you can find $100 Chromebooks. You could probably buy 9 Chromebooks for this if you get like a cheaper version of a Chromebook. So it's once again, this probably no one's willing. You might be able to. You might have $900, but who's going to be willing and able to spend $900 on a 12-year-old computer? Now, when we think of the actual law of demand, this whole idea of downward sloping to the right. So when we think about this downward sloping to the right of the demand curve, price and quantity, there are three factors that we're going to study that is our behavior that fulfills this. One is the substitution effect, one is the income effect, and one is the law of diminishing marginal utility. So we're going to go through and we'll define and explain each one of those as we go through here. So when we first think, and I put up there right away, Coke and Pepsi, okay? So when we think of Coke and Pepsi and we think of the substitution effect, if the price of Coca-Cola goes up, the price of Coca-Cola goes up if you are not brand loyal. Now, once again, if you're brand loyal, if the price of Coke goes up, you'll still buy the Coke. Maybe fewer cans, but you'll still buy the Coke. But if you're not brand loyal, which many of us are not, if you're throwing a graduation party or something like that and you have to buy soda for your house for the party, you'll probably do the substitution effect. So if the price of Coke is higher, right, then you'll go and buy the substitute. You'll buy Pepsi. If the price of Coke falls, then you'll buy more Coke and less Pepsi. So typically we look at a substitute, unless we're brand loyal, many of us look for the substitutable good, right? So a change in the price of a good is the change in the quantity of a good demanded as the consumer substitutes, and the good demanded as consumer substitutes the good that has become relatively cheaper for the good. Okay. So once again, as the price of one product goes up, so if we think of, let's say, uh, uh, I don't know, different kinds of frozen pizza. Is one more expensive? Then you go and buy the substitute. If we're conscientious buyers and we're not brand loyal, some of us are very brand loyal to specific items. Other things we may not be as brand loyal. Clothes, sometimes we're brand loyal to a certain name of it, right? A certain product of it. Like just think about when you go shopping, sometimes you might go, oh my God, this looks really nice until you look at the price tag, right? The second one is income effect. How much money do you have in your income effect? Now, here's what happens and why the demand curve is downward sloping to the right. When the price of the product falls, your purchasing power increases. Let's say, for example, that you want a fancy dancy cup of coffee from Starbucks and you have $50. $50. If they're $10 a cup, you can only buy 5 cups of coffee. But if the price were to fall to, let's say, $7 a cup, well, then obviously you can buy more cups of coffee. If the price were to drop to, let's say, I don't know, $4 a cup of coffee. Once again, you could buy 12 cups, right? You'd have a little bit of change, but you can buy more. So when the price falls, your purchasing power increases so you can buy more. When the price goes up, your purchasing power diminishes. So we have to look at that. We can't buy as many at a higher price because of our purchasing power. The third one is the law of diminishing marginal utility. And once again, this talks about satisfaction. Okay. We buy goods because there's a certain amount of satisfaction that we get for them. So the law of diminishing marginal utility states that as you consume anything, the additional satisfaction will eventually decrease. So, in other words, if I buy a slice of pizza at the local, in our high school football game, and it costs $3. Well, I might be willing and able, I might have $3 and I buy that slice. But the pizza maybe is not so good. So you might go, I'm hungry, but do I really want to spend $3 on another piece of pizza? You don't feel like you're going to get $3 worth of satisfaction on that second piece. But if they turn around and go, hey, if you buy a second piece, we'll only charge you $2. Well, now you might go, my marginal satisfaction, my marginal utility is worth $2, so maybe I'll buy that second piece. So that's why a lot of places will sell things cheaper when you buy in bulk because they know your satisfaction will diminish over time. So the more you buy of any good, the less satisfaction you get from each new unit that you consume. So even when you go like trick or treating for Halloween, those first pieces of candy that you sneak out of your bin before your parents check it, because that's parents always have to check it, and that really means that your parents take what they like first. Just a hint for you. But those first pieces of candy tend to taste the best, and you always take your favorites out. And then as you start to go further into your bin, you're left with the ones you don't like, but at the end of the day, you'll eat them because it's still candy, but you're getting less and less satisfaction from them, right? So what does this have to do with the law of demand? This creates that downward sloping demand curve. These three ideas together create that downward sloping to the right demand curve. So when we think of the law of demand, once again, the law of demand tells us when the price goes up, quantity demand it falls, and when price goes down, our quantity demand it goes up. But we also once again have to look at our satisfaction, right? And our substitutable things. So that's really how things work. So how does this affect the pricing of businesses? Well, businesses know, they study our behavior. If you ever go to the store, they set things up knowing how we behave. They have impulse buys right there at the cash register. If you ever notice, they have the little fridges with sodas, the 20-ounce or 16-ounce sodas, plastic bottles, and those are like $1.75 a piece, right? But if you go all the way in the back at Walmart where they have soda, you can get a 2 liter sometimes for $2 or even 99 cents. But it's not cold, and it's not right there as an impulse buy. So they understand people's behavior. They also know if they put certain things on the end caps that are on sale, that will maybe get you to, if you see marshmallows are on sale on the end cap, you might buy those and go, maybe let me go down the aisle and I'll buy graham crackers and Hershey's bar and make s'mores. Or they put certain things on for the Super Bowl on sale, potato chips, knowing that you'll go down the aisle to get the dips and things like that. So businesses study our behaviors, okay, to get us to go into certain spots to buy. Here's the last one I'll give you, a really good one. If you go to a 7-Eleven or you go to a store like that, a 7-Eleven, a convenience store, if you look, if the handle is on the right side of the fridge door, then you grab it with your left and then you reach in with your right, and then you close the handle with your left, and then you turn to the right and walk. Whereas if the handle's on the left, you grab with your right, you the handle with your right hand, you grab the drink with your left hand, and then you turn and walk to your left. They do that to get you to walk into a certain pattern so that you'll go buy other impulse buys. That's why they have gum and candy bars right there when you go to check out. Impulse buys. Okay. So they study how we decide on on what we buy. Now, Disneyland, they know this. They know this. They know that if, let's say, they charged $125 for 1 day ticket, oops, 1 day ticket, they know that if they charge $125 every day, you're not going to go in and go shopping. But if they lessen the price every day, the more days you're willing to go, they know that your satisfaction diminishes the second, the third, the fourth day. So they lessen the price, knowing to try to convince you to buy tickets for more days. And they also know when you go, even if you go for 5 tickets for 5 days, they know every day you go in there, you're going to buy food, you're going to buy souvenirs, you're going to need drinks. So they're making money. And Disneyland, you can't bring in food from the outside. And they also know to that they have a monopoly on those things that you purchase inside Disneyland. Same with a movie theater. They know that you're not supposed to bring outside things. So that's why things at the movie theater are so expensive. They have a monopoly on that. So if we talk about the graphing of the demand curve, okay, we talk about the graphing of the demand curve, and we've already kind of talked about that. That's a graphical representation um, of this downward sloping to the right. Okay, we know that price is on the y-axis and quantity demanded it's on the x-axis. All right, and we read the demand curve, and what we do is we hold things ceteris paribus, saying we're holding things constant. So we like to hold things constant, and we try to create this demand curve. Now, so let's go ahead and draw a demand curve for milk. So here we go. I have the demand schedule, I have the price, and I have the quantity demanded. So at $5 we sell 10 gallons. $4 we sell 20, $3 we sell 30, $2 we sell 50, and at $1 we sell 80. Okay. So if we go ahead and graph it, it'll look like this, downward sloping to the right. All right. This is the law of demand, downward sloping to the right. So we know as the price goes down, quantity demanded goes up, and the price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. Now, when we move, just so that we're clear too, when we move, so if we label this point A, point B, point C, if we start at point A and we go down to point C, so if we go from B to C, okay, from B to C, what happened? The price went down, but the quantity demanded went up. If we go from B to A, we know the price went up and the quantity demanded fell. So please understand this. Anytime we go to the right, that's an increase. And anytime we go to the left, that's a decrease. Now, I know some of you might go like, oh, we're going up the curve. Well, we're not really going up from A to B. We're increasing the price, but the quantity demanded is falling. Okay. Because we went from from at point B at $30 or at $3 we sold 30 units, but at $4 we only sold 20 units. When we went from B to C, we went from $3 to $2, and we went from 20 units to 50 units. Okay, so it's important to understand these, what we're showing right here, the sliding along the curve, those are changes in price, right? Which leads to changes in quantity demanded. You please make sure you understand the difference between a change in quantity demanded, because we're going to talk about a change in demand, and that's going to be different. Okay, that's going to be different. Now, how do we get our market demand? Well, what we do is we take each person's individual demand curve. So if we got Billy's demand curve, Gene's demand curve, and then the others in class, we add up everyone's individual demand curves, and then we get the market demand curve. So if we look here, Billy at $5 buys one, right? Billy buys one at $5. Ooh, there we go. Gene buys 0, and then the rest of the class buys 9. So 1 plus 0 plus 9 is 10. And then we can go all the way down here. So at $3, Billy buys 3, Gene buys 2, the rest of the class buys 25, and that leads to 30. So if we go ahead and we graph, we know that this is at $3 is Billy's, then this is Gene's, this is the rest of the class, and then therefore this is the market demand curve. So businesses want to know the market demand curve. They don't really care about your individual. They want to know the market. So businesses are focused on the market. So they got to know at $3, they got to have 30 units on the shelves for everyone who's buying a product. So by now we should understand the aspects of the definition of demand, our willingness and ability, and this inverse relationship, right? We should, our willingness and ability, right? That includes that satisfaction in that willingness. We should understand what the law of demand is. When price goes up, quantity demanded falls. When price goes down, quantity demanded rises. We should understand the substitution effect, the income effect, the law of diminishing marginal utilities, like we lessen our satisfaction. Okay, that's really important to understand. And we should know how the market as a whole is calculated, the market demand. Or we could even later on in macro, we talk about the aggregate demand curve, which is the sum of all market demand curves together. Okay. And if we were in class, we would talk a little bit about fast food and the different demand curves of that and have you write some down, but we're not in class, so we're not going to do that. So now this leads us to shifts in demand curve. So if we hold everything constant, okay, and we make certain assumptions, are there things that will shift the demand curve to the right or to the left? Okay, are there things that will shift the demand curve right or left? So if we hold the price the same, are there outside factors that will change people's willingness and ability to purchase a good? So this is a change in demand, not a change in quantity demanded. Remember, price does not shift the demand curve. So what we're saying is if we have a demand curve right here, all right, that I'm drawing in the middle, what will cause the demand curve to shift this way, or what will cause the demand curve to shift to the left? So what things will shift the demand curve? And those are changes in demand, changes in demand. So if we look at this demand schedule for milk again, okay, and what if they say milk will make you smarter? What if milk will make you smarter? I'm willing to bet people, if we look at the quantity demanded, I'm willing to bet people will go, I think we might buy more milk. If it makes us smarter, then we'll be willing to buy more milk. So right now we see at $5 we'll buy 10, $4.20, $3 at 30, $2 at 50, and $1 at 80. But look what happens when we say that. Now we say milk will make you smarter. So what happens? We see that the quantity demanded goes up, right? But the price doesn't change. So essentially what we're getting here is a shift right in demand. Now, once again, remember I said Before, if we go right, that's an increase, and if we go left, that's a decrease. Well, here, a shift right, this is an increase in demand. This is an increase in demand. So a shift right is an increase in demand. So essentially, the price didn't change, but more people are willing to buy it. So at $4, before we knew milk made us smarter, we only bought 20. But now we want to buy 40. And if we change the color and we look at it, let's use a different color here. So if we're at let's say $2, at $2, we were willing to buy 50, but now at $2, we're willing to buy 70. So this is at every price, we're willing to buy more because there's an increase in demand because of preferences. People choose to drink milk because they said it will make you smarter. But what if we said milk causes baldness? What if milk causes baldness and we go back to our original demand curve? Well, I'm willing to bet many of you go, I don't know if I want milk. So what happens? We get less numbers of people. Therefore, we're going to get a shift left, which is a decrease in demand, a decrease in demand. So once again, we could see at $4, we used to buy 20, now we only buy 10. At $1, we used to buy 80, and now we buy 60. So once again, we're shifting left. And once again, this is a decrease in demand. Please don't confuse this with a decrease in quantity demanded. This is a decrease in demand. A decrease in demand. Okay? Now, let's take a look at this example here. What if we went at the price didn't change, the price didn't change, but we go from, or I'm sorry, what is it called when we go, I'm sorry, hold on, let's go here. We'll go from A to B first. So if we go from A to B, okay, A to B, from A to B, that's a decrease in price and an increase in quantity demanded. So going from A to B is a change in quantity demanded. Okay, it's a change in quantity demanded because we are sliding down the curve. We're on the exact same curve, but it's a slide down the curve. Therefore, that's a change in quantity demanded. But if we go from A to C, that's a shift. The price didn't change, but we're buying more of it. So some other outside factors have encouraged us to buy more. So from A to B, we're buying more because the price changed, right? So the change in B is the law of demand. So when the price fell, the quantity demanded went up. But from A to C, there's some sort of outside factor, a determinant of demand that encourage us to buy more of the product at that $3 price. Okay. So there is a difference. The A to B is a change in quantity demanded. From A to C is just an increase in demand. So once again, A to B is an increase in quantity demanded. A to C is an increase in demand. Okay, so if we were to write that, this one would be an increase in quantity demanded. This one would just be an increase in demand. So please understand the difference. Please understand the difference between a change in demand versus a change in quantity demanded. I tend to use from my olden days, I don't know if they still do, but a change being the triangle. So a change in demand versus a change in quantity demanded. And this is going to be the same thing when we start talking about supply. When we talk about supply in module 6, it will be a change in supply versus a change in quantity supply that we're going to have to know the difference of. Okay? So, what happens to the demand for milk if the price of milk goes up? What happens to the demand curve for milk if the price of milk goes up? Well, guess what? Nothing. The demand curve still stays the same. So if the price goes up, if we were here if we were here and price goes up from the point A to, let's say here, point B, the demand curve didn't change. We just see that increase in price from $2 to $3, and we could see our quantity demand, it fell from 50 to 30. So this example is an increase in price and a decrease in quantity demanded. What does a change in the price do to a demand curve? Move along, move along. See, we're just a change in price is just a slide up and down that demand curve. We're moving along. Okay. Now, when we talk about determinants of demand, I use the acronym CSI PET. Your book may not use the same thing. I don't believe they use the same acronym. Oops. All right. I like using this acronym, CSI PET. C meaning complementary goods, S meaning substitutes, I income, P population, E expectations, and T taste, fads, and preferences. So when we start to think of those, the first two, the first two are prices of related goods. Prices of related goods, meaning like, let's say if hot dogs go on sale, um, well, what's a complementary good to a hot dog? A hot dog bun, right? So if the price of hot dogs go on sale, people are going to buy more hot dogs because of the law of demand. But then we know what's a complementary good to hot dogs? Buns. So there'll be a shift right in the demand curve for buns. Now, substitutable goods. Well, if hot dogs are on sale, then we'll see the demand curve of a substitutable good, which would be hamburgers. Hamburgers would shift to the left, right? There would be a decrease in demand for hamburgers. Income, and we're going to get into the more specifics of this. Income, once again, we have to look at whether something is a normal good or an inferior good. Usually, when our income goes up, we buy normal goods. So for income, if our income goes up, our demand curve for normal goods increase. If our income goes down, our demand for normal goods decreases. But inferior goods, it's the exact opposite. If our income goes up, if I'm making more money, I'm going to probably buy less ramen noodles. I'm going to buy less generic. But if my income falls, I'm going to probably buy more generic goods, because my income has fallen, and I want to make sure that I have, that additional purchasing power. Then we have population. We're talking about the number of consumers. For example, my son goes to college, and when college is not in session during the summer, kids leave college. His school has like 50,000 kids on campus. When the kids leave in May for school, the demand curve for Domino's Pizza shifts to the left. But in August, when the kids all show up to school, the demand curve for Domino's Pizza shifts way to the right because kids are on campus. We could say, population, we could say, let's say you live in a small town and the local business or the local factory that everyone works at closes down. Well, people might move out of the town, so the demand for food at the local Casey's would shift to the left. Okay. Then there's expectations. Expectations, we talk about future prices. So if we expect future higher prices, we expect the demand curve for the product today to increase because we'd want to buy it when the prices are lower. Remember, as a consumer, we want to buy things when there's lower prices. So if we expect future higher prices, then today our demand curve would shift to the right because we want to buy it. But if we expect future lower prices, then the demand curve today would shift to the left because we would buy less of it today and buy more of it when the price is lower. Then we have taste, fads, and preferences. And once again, these are things like if there's certain, like the spinner. Remember, the spinner was very popular for like one semester, and everyone had to get it. So the demand curve for that went way to the right. Or when you guys were in middle school or grade school, those silly bands were really popular. So that shifted to the right. Or when I was in my 20s, the Atkins diet was really popular. So everyone was eating meat and no bread, no pastas, no bread, no grain. So once again, preferences and tastes and fads come and go. So those will shift the demand curve right and left. Once again, changes in price don't shift the curve. Now, don't get confused when we talk about price of related goods for complementary and substitutable. Okay? Don't get that confused. We're talking about if the price of a hot dog falls, people are going to buy more hot dogs, but what happens to its complementary good? If the price of hot dogs go on sale, that's a fall in price, right? But what happens to buns? Buns shifts right. What happens to hamburgers? They shift left if hot dogs go on sale. So we'll go in a little more detail here, okay, just so that we're clear. Just so that we're clear. So once again, complementary goods are two goods that are bought and used together. So if the price of hot dogs fall, the demand curve for hot dog buns will increase. It'll shift to the right. So if the price of one increases, the demand for the other will fall. So if the price of hot dogs increase, the demand for its complementary goods will also decrease. Will if I'm sorry, if the price of one increase, so if the price of hot dogs go up, the demand curve for hot dogs or hot dog buns will shift to the left. So if we say this is hot dog bun or hot dogs and this is hot dog buns, if the price of hot dogs falls, we could see that we're going to buy more hot dogs, right? So if we're going to buy more hot dogs, we need more buns, right? That's what was going to happen, or vice versa. Now, substitutable goods, it's the same basic premise, right? Same basic premise. If the price of Pepsi falls, all right, what will happen to the demand for Coke? Well, if the price of Pepsi falls, right, and it slides down the curve, more people are going to buy Pepsi. So what's going to happen to Coke? Coke is going to shift to the left. So less people will buy Coke. Okay. And it goes the opposite. If the price of Coke goes up, people are going to buy more Pepsi. Okay. So those are complementary goods. Or I'm sorry, those are substitute goods. So here, are these substitutes or complementary? Bananas right next to breakfast cereal. Well, if bananas go on sale or if cereal goes on sale, people might buy more bananas because people slice bananas on top. So these are complementary goods, right? What about substitute goods? Are these two substitute goods? That's funny. Anyway, what about these? Are these two substitute goods? I don't know about that. Okay. Um, are these complementary goods? Halloween masks and chainsaws. This is a fail, but is this a complementary good? Oh, that cracks me up. Okay, so let's take a look at income now. Let's look at income. Okay, normal goods. Okay, normal goods. So when we look at normal goods, okay, when we look at normal goods, typically what happens in normal goods, as income increases, our demand increases, and income falls, demand falls. So as we make more money, we'll buy more normal goods. We make less money, we'll buy less. So if our income goes up for a normal good, our demand curve increases to the right. If our income goes down, our demand curve shifts to the left. But if we look at inferior goods, okay, we look at inferior goods. If we look at inferior goods, okay, such as generic or used products, those things have the opposite effect. When our income increases, our demand for an inferior good will shift to the left. It'll be a decrease. And if our income falls, our demand actually increases for generic goods because we have less money. Okay. So anytime you see any kind of question, they'll always tell you whether or not the product is a normal good or an inferior good. And we'll also be able to calculate those things when we start talking about elasticities. We'll be able to figure that out because we'll look at income elasticity, which is in the next unit. Okay. So once again, when we look at this, we can see once again, if we think of substitutes, right? What when this happens, then we'll see this. So when the price of a substitute rises, then we'll see the demand increase for the substitute. When we see the price of the substitute fall, right, we'll see the demand for the product fall. And so we have these samples here for complementary goods or if income, right? Like we said before, if income rises, we'll buy more of a good. When income falls, we'll buy less of a normal good. Then we says if it's an inferior good, if our income falls, our demand will shift to the right. When our income rises, an inferior good will shift to the left, which is a decrease in demand. Um, Taste, fads, preferences. If it's favorable, we'll see a demand shift to the right. If it's not favorable or it's not a fad, it'll shift to the left. When we talk about expectations, right? We talk about expectations, future prices. When we expect the future prices to rise, we'll buy more of a product today. So we'll see a shift to the right, an increase in demand. When we expect future prices to fall, we're going to buy less today because we'd rather buy more when prices are lower. And then the number of consumers. If the number of consumers increase, that'll be an increase in the right. If we see the number of consumers fall, we'll see a decrease in demand. So once again, I like to use the acronym CSI PET for complementary goods, substitutable goods, income, population, expectation, taste, fads, and preferences. All right. So practice. Which of the following will cause the demand for milk to decrease? Which of the following will cause the demand for milk to decrease? So for this one, a decrease in the income, assuming that milk is a normal good. So if we're assuming that milk is a normal good, we will see a decrease in demand if our income goes down, if it's a normal good. Okay. Next one. Which of the following will cause the quantity demanded for milk to decrease? And that would be an increase in the price of milk. So that would be a slide up and to the left on the demand curve. Okay. So we're going to go through a couple samples here, and you're going to determine whether or not it shifts it, if it's a shifter or not a shifter, if it increase or decrease in demand. So we'll take a look at that. So we're going to take a look at 8 examples. Okay. So we're going to assume that hamburgers are a normal good, and you're going to determine what's shifting it, if it's shifting right or left, or if it's not shifting, if it's a slide. Okay. So we're going to go through 8 scenarios. So the first one, there's a population boom. What will we see happen to hamburgers? Well, we will see that hamburgers, the number of consumers, if it's a population boom, the number of consumers increasing. So we'll see an increase in demand, and that will shift the demand curve for hamburgers to the right. What if income falls due to a recession? Well, that falls under income. And that if it's a normal good, if income falls, that means that we're going to buy less of a good. So income is the shifter. We see a decrease in demand and it will shift to the left. The price of tacos, a substitute, decreases. Well, let's think about it. If the price of tacos, a substitute, decreases, so the price of tacos falls, that means that more people are going to buy tacos. So would people buy more or less hamburgers? Well, if more people are buying tacos, then less people are going to buy hamburgers. So that's the substitution effect, right? So that would be a decrease and a shift left. The price increases to $5 for hamburgers. The price increases to $5 for hamburgers. Well, that's not a shifter. That's a change in price, which means it's a change in quantity demanded. So there's no shift on number 4. This is a decrease in quantity demanded. So it's going to move left along the curve. So it's going to be going upward to the left on the demand curve, upward and to the left on the demand curve. The next one, a new health craze, no ground beef. A new health craze, no ground beef. Well, That is, once again, in the taste, fads, and preferences. So no ground beef. So we're going to see that's going to be a decrease in demand, and that's going to shift the demand curve left. Number 6, hamburger restaurants announce that they will significantly increase prices next month. So what's going to happen today? Next month, they're going to increase prices. So what's going to happen today? Well, that's future expectations. People are going to run out and buy hamburgers today. So that'll be an increase in demand and a shift right. Prices of fries, a complementary good, increases, right? Fries, complementary good, increases. So what's going to happen to hamburgers? Well, we're going to see that that's a complementary shifter. That's going to be a decrease in demand and shift the demand curve to the left. And the last one, restaurants lower price of burgers to 50 cents. That's not a shift, that's a change in price. So that would be as price falls, quantity demanded goes up. So there'll be an increase in quantity demanded, and we will move right along the curve. So we'll slide downward to the right of the curve. Okay. So once again, here were the answer keys to what we had put in there. So what we need to make sure we understand is that the supply and demand is a model, right? And we're talking about a perfectly competitive market. The demand schedule shows us the quantity demanded at each price, and it creates the demand curve. We know the law of demand curve says that the curve is downward sloping to the right, and the law of demand curve tells us once again whoa, why is this not writing? If the price goes up, quantity demanded falls, and the price goes down, quantity demanded rises. Okay, and then a movement along the demand curve. Those are once again following the law of demand that I have up here, right? That's moving along it, right? So we have to understand the difference between, we have to understand the difference between a change in demand versus a change in quantity demanded. Okay, a change in quantity demanded is a slide on the same line. A change in demand are shifts. So when we shift the curve right and left. So in your book, they talk about the 5 main factors of shifting. I call it 6 because I break this price of related goods. I break that into substitutable and complementary. Okay, I break those down into 2 different ones. But once again, when we think of CSI Pet, I like to use C. Whoa, come on, pen. CSI Pet. So C I like to use for complementary. S I like to use for substitute. I is income. P is for population, the number of consumers. E expectations, future expectations of price, and then T for taste, fads, and preferences. Okay, and then we have to also know that we add each individual's demand curve up to make the market demand curve. Okay, so hopefully after today, you have a better understanding of the basic premise of the demand curve. I look forward to seeing you in the next video that will discuss supply. So until then, have a great day.